Hello, in this video tutorial I'm going to cover how to initially set up your TeamSpeak 3 server, whether it's one you happen to be running yourself on a home machine or if you're renting one from a provider. And I will also show you how to create secure channels, and you will also be able to make it so that your other admins won't be able to hijack the server. Because it has happened many times where you give someone admin and they just screw everything up and they take away your admin. They start just really causing all kinds of mayhem. So I'm going to start the server, and if you are renting a server from a provider, they will provide you a privilege key, which is right here, and they will give you the IP address and the port to connect to. So now I'm going to load the client, and you would just go to connect and then put in the IP address and the port and then hit connect. I already have a bookmark set up, so I'm just going to click this bookmark, main admin. When you first connect to the server, it's going to ask you for the privilege key. So paste that into there. And now, as you can see, we have the gray S shield, server admin. Now if we go to permissions, server groups, you'll see this is at the top. This is the top admin. Many mistakes are made by people running servers, and one of them is that they give their guys this same level of admin. And what that means is, since they have the same ability as you as the server owner, they could take away your own admin or make secretive changes to the server. So if you take away their admin, they can get it back or never get banned or whatever it is. So I'm going to cover how to duplicate this and modify it so they have a lot of power, but they can't go screwing with every single thing you've done. And this is the simple permission system. This is too basic to be of any real use, in my opinion. So what I need you to do is to go to settings, go to options, and in the first tab at the top here, application, click advanced permissions system. That needs to be checked. Then hit OK. So now when we go back into permissions and server groups, you'll see we have a tree structure where we can find things. Many different options, and I'm going to cover the key ones here so you can relax about that. So first of all, we need to make a copy of the server admin group, and then we need to reduce the permissions a bit on that copy. So right click server group, server admin, copy it, and we'll just call this admin. So now we've got the main admin, and now we've got a new one which is admin. And for purposes of identification, I'm going to click server admin, which is the main one, go to group, and where it says icon ID, double click the icon, and I'm going to choose the bright red one, so we can clearly see the red one is the main one. So now shrink that down, go to admin because we want to tweak some settings here. And by default, admins can break in to any channel. It doesn't matter if there are permissions set on it or if there's a password on it, they can just walk straight in. So in order to be able to prevent that, one of the things we have to change is the skip flag. And it's giving you a warning here letting you know that the admin rank has this enabled. So to disable this, go to client, and you'll see it right here, skip channel group permissions. Uncheck that. That is crucial. If you want to be able to have a secure server where people such as admins can't just go barging into any channel, that is necessary. And where's the other one? I think it's under channel. If you go to channel, access, ignore channel passwords. Uncheck that one, because you really, if you have a password, you don't want anyone and everyone being able to barge in. So that's kind of important, but the main one really is the skip. This one, that needs to be unchecked. Alright, so once that's done, we need to make a few more modifications here to make this safe. So what we need to do now is we need to go to Group and go to Modify, and you see the Permission Modify power. Put this on 70. Because we want to make sure they have the power, but they shouldn't have quite as much power as we, the server owner, have. So for permission modify power, that should be 70. Group modify power should also be 70. And what this means is that the admins with this rank of server group admin cannot modify any server group or channel group which has a needed group modify power of something higher than it. So these groups that we're setting up here, at least the server admin and the admin, their requirement will be 75 to be able to modify in any way, and they will have 70. So that means that these groups are safe from being tampered with by your other admins. And then to make sure that your other admins can't go assigning people to any rank they want, such as the server admin group, which would be really bad, we have to take down their add and remove power in this same section. So put that to 70 as well. There's the add power, group member remove power. Put that to 70. So we've reduced the modify power, the add and remove power, and the permission modifier. What permission modifier means is that next to these permissions, you'll see a grant permission in the server groups area. And what that means is if somebody has a permission modify power at that level or higher than this level, then they can actually tweak this permission, provided they meet any other requirements, such as the group modify power requirement. If they have the permission to be able to tweak something, but they don't have the permission to modify that particular group, they can't modify it. So that's why we're protecting the server groups from tampering, and we're reducing it. So in a previous video where I had to cut the sound out because of some background noise, I went through and sped up the video while I removed all these 75s and just deleted them, and then added number 70 for whatever it was that they needed to be able to modify. So instead of doing that, we can actually just reduce their modify power to 70 and leave all these 75s there, because their level is underneath it, so they can't do anything with any of these 75s anyway. So if we want them to modify something, we just simply change the grant value to 70. Okay, so there's a permission that's similar to this relating to channel permissions. So if we go to channel, you see channel permission modify. Put this also to 70. And then we want to go to modify under channel as well. Scroll down and you'll see channel modify power. Put this to 70. What this means is that if we as the server owner decide to create a channel that we do not want anyone else tampering with, whether it's for reasons of security or you've typed a whole big description and you don't want anyone messing with it, this will also protect that, because you can choose the modify requirements on every channel. So we put that at 70. Channel delete power, that should be on 70. And then access. These are the abilities to get into channels. So you already saw we took away the ignore channel passwords. So if there is a passworded channel, they have to know the password to be able to enter that channel. Now we've got the channel join power. you can use, other than just passwords, you can use the permission system restricting who can get into a channel, and that's based on powers. So if you put a requirement of 70 for join power on a channel, someone has to have here 70 or higher to be able to enter that channel. So since we probably want to end up making some secure channels that nobody else can get into, for this second admin group, we're going to reduce these channel access permissions to 70. So we'll just change these here to 70. And right here we've got the channel permission modify power. We have that set to 70 now. So if our admins here go creating channels, we might want them to be able to choose these kinds of restrictions. So while join power is the actual ability to get into a channel, the corresponding needed channel join power is the permission that needs to be changed on the channel itself. So if you scroll across, you can see there's a 75 there. So since I want them to be able to alter the needed join power, subscribe power, and description power, we're going to reduce this to 70. So they will be eligible to change these settings on a channel that they have access to change. Okay, so now anyone with this rank will be able to change the needed channel join power, needed channel subscribe power, and needed channel description power, but all these other ones can't be tweaked with because they're at 75, and they only have a power for channel permission modifier of 70. And if you remember, we also changed their permission modifier to 70, which is the main thing that corresponds with these grant figures. So now that we've got that, let's move on. Okay, so let's come out of channel, go into group. Now, one thing that we also should do is protect against your admins being able to assign permissions just onto people themselves. The best way of doing permissions is to assign a group to someone that has permissions on it. So you can easily see who has permissions, who doesn't. You can take them away, give them back. It's very simple. But you can assign permissions to an individual person. And many servers have been hacked by people who've given admin to someone they thought they could trust. And what that admin went and did is assigned to themselves as an individual all kinds of administrative access privileges. So even if that server owner takes away their admin, it doesn't matter because they can just put it back on or come back into the server anytime they want. And the server owner, unless they know what's going on, they probably won't be able to prevent that person. So we need to stop them being able to set client permissions. So if you go to Group, Information, and scroll down, you'll see, where is it? View list of client permissions. We want to turn that off. So this right here will not work for them. Okay, so that will protect that. Alright, so that's fine for information. Now, if you want your admins to be able to create new server groups, you can leave this ticked or checked. If you want them to create channel groups, you can also leave that checked. If you don't want them adding any groups at all, you can just uncheck these. But for now, we'll leave them checked. Okay, so for the icon ID, if you are letting them create groups, you want to put this grant value to 70, so that when they do create a server group or a channel group, they will be able to select an icon for it from the list. And you can also upload your own icons. So if you click like normal and then double click on icon ID, you can upload a PNG image that is 16 pixels wide by 16 pixels high, and that will be inside this list here, and so you can have all kinds of custom icons for different purposes, whether you want to have different server admin groups with icons or perhaps clan tags. You could get a 16 by 16 pixel PNG of your clan tag and put that up there and assign that to people. So for admin, if you put icon ID grant of 70, they can tweak that if they create a group. But remember, they can't modify anyone that we've made as a server owner because their group modify power is not high enough. They've got 70, but it's necessary to have 75 to change anything in these groups right here. So let's see, what else do we need? If you want them to be able to change the order of these, so like put admin further up the list, drop server admin to the bottom, whatever like that, for group sort ID, put that on 70 as well, so they can change that. And if you're making a clan tag server group, you can put the name of the clan in, and then using this, you can choose to have it show up at the left of the name or the right of the name. So instead of them having to type, square bracket, clan, close square bracket, it will just do it automatically as soon as it's assigned. So if you want them to be able to do that, put that on 70 as well. Because remember, we have to drop these grant values to 70 to allow them to alter them. Because by default, they can't alter anything unless we do that. Okay, so that's fine. Come out of group, go into client. If you want them to be able to see, if you want your admins to be able to see people's IP address, leave that checked. If you don't, then uncheck that, and then they can't see people's IP address. So come out of information, we'll go to admin. Now this area is to do with things like kicking, banning, moving people around. You probably, for an admin, you probably won't want to change these, but if you really want to, you could lower some of the actual powers to 70 and leave the needed equivalent on 75 so that people who are an admin can, for example, kick people from the server, but in order for them themselves to get kicked from the server, the person would have to have 75, which right now is only you as the server owner. So if you wanted to, you could just put their power for these things on 70 and just leave the needed on 75 so that they're protected from themselves, so that only you can deal with them. And if you don't want them to be able to delete all ban entries, you can uncheck that so they can only delete their own ban entries. And if you don't want them deleting any ban entries, you can even uncheck that, delete own ban rules, so you can uncheck that one. The ban time is set at -1, and that means there is no minimum or maximum for them to be able to ban people for. So if they want, they can ban someone permanently. If you don't want your other admins to be able to have the power to permanently ban, you need to put inside here the number of seconds that you want them to be able to ban for. So you just have to get calculator out and convert the hours, days, or whatever, convert it into seconds and type it in there. So that's the admin. Basics. This is things like messaging people, typing in chat, that kind of thing. So if you want to, you could probably just leave these as they are already. If you don't want your admins to be able to type to the entire server, which is always the left tab in the chat area, then you could just uncheck send text messages to server. So they wouldn't be able to send server-wide messages. It's usually a good idea to change the talk power to a lower number. So if we put 70 for that, client poke power, 70 for that. And we'll put private message power, 70 for that. So if we want to restrict them, we can do. Because we could actually, for example, click on server admin and set our needed value to 75 if we wanted to. So that means that those admins couldn't private message us. Or if we wanted them to message us, but we don't want to get poked, because every time you get poked, it brings a message up. And for example, if you're gaming, that means your game just minimized and now you could lose a match or something. So what you could do is you could go to needed client poke power for yourself as a server admin and set that to 75. So when an admin who only has 70 tries to poke you, it won't work. They can message you, that's fine, because you didn't put a needed in for that. So anybody can message you, but at least they won't be able to poke you because you set a needed poke power of 75. So let's go back to this secondary admin that we're working on. Whisper power. This is the ability to be able to send voice communication to anyone, anywhere in the server, at any time. This is something that is exploited all over the place, because by default, whenever you have a server, anybody and everybody can send a whisper, which is what this is, and they can do it so that it broadcasts to the entire server. So if you want to prevent that, what you do is you go to guest and set their client whisper power at something like -100. So if just random people connect into the server, they will have no ability to do a whisper to anybody because they don't have enough power. So, and if you want to, you can set a complicated system up of varying needed powers and varying actual powers. So you could have it so that admins can whisper admins, like, 75, 75 for the power and the requirement. And then clan members have got like 50 and 50, so they can perhaps whisper themselves, but they can't whisper the admins and disrupt them. So you can set more complicated things up with that. But just for argument's sake, always click on guest and just put their whisper power at -100. It will save you a lot of headache. So back to the new admin we're working on. That's the basics. Go down to modify. If you want your admins to be able to modify anyone's description, which to modify a description, you right click and you can change your description. Well, if you want them to be able to change everyone's description, you can leave that on. Leave it checked. If you don't want them to, just uncheck that. Similarly, if you have clan members, you've made a clan one, and you want them to be able to set their own description, perhaps some kind of statistic for a game that tells you how good they are, then you can find the server group that you made for the clan members and put modify own description on, so that they can tweak their own and type whatever they want. So if we go back to admin, let's see. Create a server query account. The chances are you should always take this off, because that is a more advanced command prompt style telnet connection where you have to get a specialized program to be able to connect to a server to be able to type commands to it. So usually it's a good idea to take that off, because even you will probably never need to use it, but at least for your other admins, just take that off because they do not need it. So come out of modify. Since we have restricted these new admins so that they cannot use the client permissions, what this will now basically refer to is the ability to assign or revoke server groups to a person. So if someone has a power of 75 and a requirement of 75, then it takes somebody with 75 to be able to assign or revoke a server group to them. So you can choose to either leave that, or you can, again, similarly with the Whisper system, set up a more complicated system so that clan members can't go assigning groups or anything to server admins, but server admins can go assigning groups to them. But for now, we'll just leave that, because we don't need to tweak that. Maximum number of additional connections per identity. That is how many tabs can someone have open using the same identity. So perhaps they're in the server entrance, and they're also inside clan lobby at the same time. Well, this is the number of additional, so they could have up to 11 people, because if it says additional connections, if they've got one, you could have 10 additional connections. If you want to, you could reduce that to prevent them bringing in more identities, well, to bring in more copies of the same identity, but I don't think that's really crucial, because anybody could just load up a new identity and bring in as many as they want anyway. So I would just leave that. Here is the file size in bytes of the avatar size that they can set. I would usually say put in 512,000, so they can have up to 0.5 MB for an image. Maximum channel subscriptions, you want to really leave that on -1. That means there's no limit to the number of channels they can subscribe to and see inside. We already dealt with that, took that off so they can't just bust into any channel that's been secured. If you want to enforce push to talk on a channel, you can, on the channel itself, put that permission on, and then anyone going into that channel will have to use their push to talk button. Similarly, with a server group, if you want someone who has that assigned to them to only use their push to talk instead of voice activation or continuous, just put that on. Otherwise, just leave it off. Ignore bans. That means that if that's checked, they can't be banned. In order for you to deal with this person, you would have to take away the admin and then ban them. Ignore anti-flood measures. You should usually leave that on, even for your clan members, so they don't run into any issues trying to type things. Use reserved slot, that's a good idea. So if you have any reserved slots that you've set, they will be able to make use of those and get in, even if the server is full, which is kind of crucial if you have admins, because a server without the ability to have an admin get into the server is just asking for trouble. Okay, if you want them to be able to delete other people's avatars, perhaps they've got something offensive that you have a rule against, then you can leave that on and they can delete them. And the sticky, that is, if someone has sticky assigned to them, either because it's been set onto a channel they joined, or if it's assigned to a server group or a channel group, sticky means they can't be moved and they can't move out of that channel themselves. So ignore sticky client permission means whoever has the ignore is able to move people around who have been sticked. So if you want to use the sticky system as some kind of a security tool, and you don't want your admins being able to move anyone who has been placed into a sticky status, untick that so the admins will not be able to move anyone who has been assigned the sticky client permission. So once that has all been done, that should mean now that your admin rank that you've created separately has a lot of abilities, but they can't just go completely wild and just totally destroy things. So I'm going to show you. I'm going to create a channel. I'm going to call it Secured Owners Channel. I'm going to make it a permanent channel. And here you can set the voice quality and all that. So I'm going to decide I want it maximum quality. And if you remember, the server admin has 75 power for pretty much everything. So and we made the new admin a power of 70 for things like this and other things. So since I want this to be only for me being the owner, I can put this on 75 for join power, so only I can get into it, or anyone else I've given the main server admin to. If I don't want anyone to be able to see inside of this channel, I can also put a subscribe requirement on of 75. So only people who have the main server admin can see anyone in that channel. And let's say I wanted to put some really important information. Maybe I've got a couple of really good friends and I want them to have the same level of admin as me because I really trust them. You could put 75 for the description, so they would be able to edit the channel, type something in there, and kind of pass messages backwards and forwards, kind of like an admin notepad, and nobody else would be able to read it. And obviously the modify power is the requirement to be able to modify the channel, which, if you remember, the other admins only have 70. Same with the delete power, so we'll put those all on 75. And we can choose to have the voice data encrypted, so that when it's being broadcast onto the internet, it isn't just in a state where it could be stolen and your words reconstructed. So usually I always put the encryption on. And if we want, we can click up here and set an icon. So I'm going to put the big red S. So now what I'm going to do is, in a new tab, I'm going to bring in a new person, and this is the guy that I want to give one of the new admin ranks to. So let's go to the main admin, and we will assign him admin. Okay, so now let's go over here. So now I'm on the secondary admin account. As you can see, the name is bold, which means this is currently who I am in this tab. So let's see what I can do. You can see here client permissions is grayed out. So server groups, if I go to admin, and let's see, if I try and change this to 75, oh, it won't let you. Failed, and it's telling you what permission, because this is 75, it isn't actually 70, and they don't have enough group modifier power to even touch these. So that's secure. They can't go adding client permissions to people because this is disabled, so they can't secretively give themselves permissions. So that is secure. And if, let's say, a user comes in, now I'm back on the secondary admin, if I right click them on this account, go to server group, you can see that server admin and admin are grayed out because they don't have the add power sufficient to be able to assign anybody to that, so they can't go giving other people admin. Now there's something else we need to do, because there is the ability to make tokens, which means that, let's say right here, the check mark means that I'm subscribed to the channel. I can see who's in it. There is no check mark on here, because if you remember, I set all the requirements to 75. So if I go into the main admin and join that channel, and then go back to this secondary admin, it looks like I'm not even on the server. So if I try and join that, I don't have enough power to be able to join it. I can't subscribe to it because I don't have enough power for that, so I can't see if anyone's even in there. And if I click it, it tells me there's nobody in there. There's currently 0 people out of an unlimited number of people. So if I try and edit this channel, I don't have power to be able to modify the channel. Okay, click OK. And it won't do anything. It won't let me tweak anything. The quality is still maximum. It's still a permanent channel. And if I try and change this to 70 to get inside of there, it won't let me, because I've only got, on this secondary admin, I only have a power of 70. So I'm not allowed to change any of these, because if I go back to the main admin, right click the channel, go to channel permissions. Now if I tick this will show all the permissions that have actually been set. So whenever you create a channel, whatever your personal channel permission modify power is, it sets that requirement. So people who have a lower power to change channel permissions, they won't be able to modify it. So since me as the server owner with the main server admin group, when I create a channel, by default, those channels can't have their permissions altered by the other admins because they don't have the power. But, like I was saying, people can create privilege keys. So what they could do is they could create privilege keys perhaps for channel groups, for channels they shouldn't have access to, or things of that nature. So what you should really do is go into the server groups again on your main admin, go into the admin that we've made especially for all the other admins, and then let me see if I can find it without having to search for it. Alright, so it's under virtual server administration, and here we've got create new privilege key. We want to take that off so they cannot create a privilege key. The only way they can assign channel groups or server groups to people is by right-clicking on somebody and using these options here. They can't go in and create a privilege key. They can use a privilege key if you, as the server owner, have made a privilege key for them to have some kind of special ability to do something. They can use the key that you give them, but they can't create a new key for anything. And then what we need to do is we need to take off view list of available privilege keys, because we don't want them being able to see all the keys that we have made. Because otherwise we could make a key, and even though we didn't tell them, they could just go in and have a look and be like, oh, yeah, I'm going to be this, and they could just use the key without telling you. So we'll take off that ability so they can't see keys and they can't create keys. And if you have a password on the server, by default admins can get in without having to type a password. So it's probably a good idea to leave that on, but if you didn't want them to be able to bypass that, then you could take that off, and if you do put a password on the server itself, they would need to type that in as well. So the only other thing I've got to show you is here, you right click on the server, go to edit virtual server, hit more, and this is where you would set a password on the server itself. Type in password. If you want to reduce the maximum clients, you could do. You can't go higher than your license, so since this is an unlicensed server, it's got a maximum of 32. And if you rent a server, the maximum will already be set in stone at whatever you paid for. Here's where you set your number of reserved slots. So if you've got you and a couple of other admins, just put it on 3, and then those admins will be able to get in because they have that ability to use a reserved slot. If you want to give the server an icon, you can do. Like I said, you can upload a 16:16 PNG picture and perhaps put the clan logo in there or something. And you can put a message in that comes up either in the log or in a little window, but never pick this option. This option, if you use this, all it will ever do from that point forward is show the message, and as soon as they click OK, it will disconnect them from the server. And the only way to fix that is using server query, and it's just a mess. So never use modal quit, just use modal, log, or none. And depending if you're renting a server, some of these options won't be available, like the host banner. That's where you can have a picture show up over here. Or the host button, which a button appears, a square button right here. So many providers put their icon there that takes you to their website. So it allows them to give you a cheaper server because you're kind of broadcasting an advert for them, a little tiny icon. So transfers, that's to do with the file transfer system, which I'm not covering in this video. These you probably won't need to mess with. They don't even provide you any hard evidence as to what these values actually mean. So you have to kind of experiment, like putting different values in, joining different channels, and see how many channels it takes before you can't join anymore, things like that. So you probably won't need to tweak those. Security level. This, if you raise this, people, in order to get into the server, have to take the time to be able to increase their security rating. So if I go to settings, identities, I have 3 identities here. Security level 8, security level 9, security level 11. So I could raise that up if I really wanted to, but it will force people to bring their identity up to that level. And it is an exponential increase, meaning each level up takes twice as long as it took, on average, to get to that level. So here are some vague indications of how long it would take. So if you really wanted to, you could force somebody to spend days upgrading their security rating before they're allowed into the server. You normally wouldn't bother with this because the efficiency of this protecting the server is very low. On paper it sounds really good, but you can bypass it easily by, if you're a troll, you just create a bunch of identities. You spend a few days, leave your computer running, generate a really high number, and then you can go and troll the server. So I wouldn't really worry too much about this. Just leave it on 8, because you really don't need to raise it. It's kind of pointless, unless you have a really high number and all you and your friends managed to reach that number. Then you can pretty much guarantee that almost no one else is going to waste their time getting to that level. So just leave that. These on the miscellaneous tab are the default groups. So when people just join the server for the first time, they get guest. When they create a channel, they get guest channel group. And, well, no, this one is when they create a channel, the default. This one, if someone just joins a channel, that's the channel group, so that's why they have guest. So if you wanted to tweak those up, you could select a different one, but the chances are you really shouldn't be doing that unless you know for sure that the groups that you're selecting to be the defaults are safe. This one here, enable reporting to server list. This makes your server and its name. This will show up in the list of servers if someone clicks on connections, server list. So they can then search for a name, like they could type clan and put a country in, and they could find every server with clan in it. So if you're broadcasting your server yourself on your website or perhaps in a game server, and you don't want just anyone on the whole internet showing up, uncheck this, because that way it won't be broadcasting its existence to everyone on the planet. And the logs, you can tick as many of these as you want, and it will log these into the file, so you can go back and check something in the past. Let me get rid of the password off there. That's how you delete a password on the server. So now if I go to Tools, Server Log, now everything that's been done is logged in here, and you can filter, you can put people's names in and whatever to find out what's been going on. So that is how, using server groups, you can set up a system which will be safe, secure, and have the least chance of being exploited by people, because you shouldn't give anyone more abilities than they need. Because, as I said, if people just see the server admin and start giving that out, it's really bad, because they can just take yours. And if you want to have an emergency backup in case you accidentally take away your own admin, This is the real admin tab right here. Let me close out these other ones. Alright, if you want an emergency thing, right-click yourself, go down to Permissions, hit Client Permissions, and remember this is the thing that we've locked out for the other admins. They cannot do this, but this is what they would do if they wanted to make it so they could always hack your server in the future. So what I want you to do is, now that we're doing it for you yourself, go down to Group, Modify, and I want you to set for yourself a group member add, remove, permission modify, and group modify, all of 75, so that what you can actually do is you can take away, let's reconnect. You can take away your own admin. It's even warning you, you're about to leave this group. Yes. So now I have no admin, but because I assigned the necessary requirements to be able to add and remove people from server groups, now I can right-click myself and just add myself right back. So that protects you from any accidents of you removing your own admin. And I always do that on all of my servers. Luckily, I haven't been in the position to have to do that, but sometimes it's nice to be able to just hide. You know, someone comes in the server and all they see is you with no admin, and they start, you know, talking nonsense to you and trying to be annoying, and then all of a sudden you just give yourself server admin and be like, oh, what was that? And then, oh, they disappear because you banned them permanently. Or as I like to do, temporarily ban them for 20 or 30 years and tell them, don't worry, it's only a temporary ban for your actions. So that's how you can set things up, and then your other admins can't just go running rife over the system and just destroying what you've set up. One thing I did forget to mention is if you have your secondary admin and they want to make someone a priority speaker, it won't work. And I'm going to give you the resolution right now because there's been many threads on the TeamSpeak forum and just people asking the same question, how do you make this work? So you need to go back on your main admin, go to Permissions, Server Groups, click the new admin that we're working with, go to Client, and here you'll see Client is Priority Speaker. Well, we don't want to set that on them because then they would be priority speaker, but we want to make it available to them to set on somebody. So change the grant permission to 70. So now, when the other admins come on and they want to give somebody priority speaker, they just right-click the person, hit priority speaker, and boom, it will just work. So if you enjoyed this video and found it useful, please feel free to put a comment or thumbs up, and see you next time.